Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Aftershock Wrestling Entertainment. Welcome back to the Allcast. I'm your host, Brant Fowler, and we're going to talk about AEW Double or Nothing. But before we get into that, I just do want to quickly remind you that you can check out other episodes of the show on our YouTube channel at allpodcast.com. That's awepodcast.com. Or you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts from. We're on Simplecast as well, and the link to that is in the description below. And you can also follow us on social media at the Allcast. And I'll talk about how you can subscribe to the newsletter and all that stuff later on in the show. But for now, let's talk about All Elite Wrestling's big pay-per-view today, Double or Nothing. I'm recording this at almost 5 a.m. The morning of Double or Nothing. So it is tonight, and I figured, I haven't done an episode in a bit, so I'll pop on here, and I'll just give my thoughts on what I think is going to happen at Double or Nothing, who's going to win, and we'll talk about these matches. And if the video cuts out here and there, I do apologize for that. It looks like my signal is kind of weak. I don't know what's going on with that, but hopefully it will be okay. Watch me just fine, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, let's get into this. So the pre-show, I believe, only has the one match, which is the buy-in, is what they call the pre-show for Double or Nothing, and that is Smart Mark Sterling and his client Tony Nese taking on the Dream Team, the Super Team, the very popular Hookhausen. That is Hook and Danhausen, of course. Pretty decent storyline built up over the past several weeks with Hook and Danhausen. Comical, but still cool and fun. And it's something, just for the people that like the goofy kind of stuff, but also like Hook, who's really cool. And Hook's still young. Yes, he's popular. He's taken off and everything, but he's still young. So they put it on the pre-show, which is understandable. It's, one of the big pay-per-views of the year for AEW. But it should be an exciting match. It should be a fun match. It's going to be a little goofy when you get Danhausen and Smart Mark Sterling in there. I imagine Danhausen's going to get beat up a little bit by Tony Nese, and then Hook's going to make the I lost my term, hot tag, and do his thing. So that'll be cool. That'd be a fun thing to watch on the pre-show, and maybe they'll have some other stuff on the pre-show. I don't know. We'll see. I think, obviously, Hookhausen, you're not going to have Hookhausen lose. You built him up so much now. And like I said, it's been cool storytelling, which kind of leads into something I'm going to be talking about on a future episode, which is storytelling in wrestling and how important that is, that aspect of wrestling or sports entertainment is, whatever you want to call it. So I'll be talking about that in an upcoming episode, so be looking for that, because I've got some thoughts on storytelling in both WWE and AEW and other places, and what my preferences are, and we'll talk about that. So it'll be a fun episode. But let's get into the actual card for AEW Double or Nothing. Stacked card again. Some really, really cool matches we've got going on. We've got, just to breeze over some of these, we've got both Owen Hart Foundation tournament finals, the men's and the women's. So we got Samoa Joe versus Adam Cole, baby. And on the other side, of course, we have Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, as she does, versus Ruby Soho. So these are two huge matches, all former WWE people. If you can qualify Samoa Joe as a WWE guy, even though they didn't, that's a whole topic for another time. But anyway, Samoa Joe versus Adam Cole and Britt Baker versus Ruby Soho. These should be two amazing finals. And man, can you imagine the story that we're going to tell if Cole and Baker win their respective matches and they are both the Owen Hart Foundation tournament champions? It writes itself, right? So that's going to be good. I'm really excited about both of those and see what happens with those, but we'll talk more about those later. Speaking of Adam Cole, one of his stablemates in the Undisputed Elite, Kyle O'Reilly, was challenged by Darby Allin, which I did not see that coming, really. I mean, it makes sense. Kyle O'Reilly hurt Sting, so Darby challenged him. We'll talk about that. We got Jade Cargill with the rematch with Anna Jay. We've got House of Black and Death Triangle finally. We got the Hardys and the Bucks. We got the the three-way for the tag titles. We got the big, what do you call it? Is I forget what the actual match is called. Anarchy in the Arena. The big 5-on-5 match between the Jericho Appreciation Society and the Blackpool Combat Club, Santana Ortiz and Kingston, and MJF versus Wardlow. Finally, we're going to see that. Women's title, Thunder Rosa defending against Serena Deeb. And finally, of course, the World Championship as Hangman Adam Page defends against CM Punk. Like I said, it's a stacked card. If you include that pre-show match, you got 13 matches. This is going to be a 4-hour with the pre-show 5-hour pay-per-view easy. Oh, and I even skipped over one of the matches, American Top Team, which is Scorpio Sky, Ethan Page, and Paige Van Zant versus Sammy Guevara, Frankie Kazarian, and Ty Conti. So, I mean, this is just a crazy, crazy stacked card. So if you are, if you're going to watch this in one sitting, you got to make sure you got your snacks at hand and time out your bathroom breaks, because it's going to be a long one. All right. So some of the undercard matches, I would assume like the Sammy Guevara versus the top team match is going to be a little bit undercard. You've got a decent storyline built up here, but the weird thing with this particular matchup is that the dynamics have completely flipped. So going into this, I mean, Sammy Guevara had a rocket ship tied to his back, right, as they say. He was, skyrocketing to the moon with popularity, had the TNT title. He was a fan favorite, broke away from Jericho's faction, the Inner Circle, did his own thing for a while, and people were loving it. He beat Cody, became a 2-time, now 3-time, whatever, how many ever times he's been champion, at least 2 times. And then, and of course, Scorpio Sky was a heel, right? Like, he's with the Men of the Year and American Top Team, and they're being jerks, and they attacked the Inner Circle and did that whole thing, and they attacked other people and just kind of being jerks. And Dan Lambert is just a blowhard and a loudmouth, running down AEW at every chance. But then this thing with Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti happened, and it totally just flipped the script on the fan reaction for Sammy. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why and all of that. Suffice it to say, people aren't crazy about their on-screen dynamic, I guess, their on-screen relationship, which I don't have a problem with it. It's fine. I don't think it made them bad people or whatever. It's, to see them on screen. Yeah, maybe I think I've talked about this on a previous episode. As a matter of fact, I don't like the overtly PDA that we've seen with Carmella and Corey and these two and MJF and some random girl, that kind of thing. It's a little over the top, and when you see it, you're just like, I don't know. Anyway, their whole relationship kind of made them bad guys, right? And for a minute there, Scorpio Sky seemed like he was being a good guy, and then the swerve, and they tried to get the heat back. And I don't know that they did. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see who fans are cheering for during this match. But we're finally getting to see Paige Van Zant's in-ring debut. So I'm really curious to see what she does. Ty Conti is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think black belt or blue belt. So she's got martial arts background. Paige Van Zant is a mixed martial arts fighter. So it's going to be really interesting to see those two tangle. And of course, you got the history of Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. And then, we haven't seen Ethan Page wrestle for a while. At least maybe he's wrestled on Dark or Elevation. I don't watch those, so I don't know. But on Dynamite or Rampage or pay-per-view, we haven't really seen him much lately. So it's going to be cool to see this. But I'm predicting that Sammy and Frankie and Ty You know what? I really don't know. This one's a hard one to call. I'm going to predict they actually lose because they've kind of gotten the upper hand. And now Scorpio Sky's got his custom-made title. It's Paige Van Zandt's debut. I think they pull out the win somehow. So Sammy's team loses. I don't know how I feel about that, but that's what I think is going to happen. So we'll see. All right, moving on from that, we've got Jade Cargill defending the TBS Championship versus Anna Jay. This is the second time she's defended against Anna Jay. Jade Cargill has beaten everybody that's been put in front of her. Nobody's been able to come close, really. Anna Jay, I love Anna Jay. And I think when she and Ty had that hardcore tag team match where they just pull out all the stops, we saw a totally different side of Anna Jay, and we haven't seen her since. And but I think she's got it in her, and maybe she's been training and practicing and things behind the scene that we've not seen. Is it time for Jade to drop this title, though? I don't know that it's time for Jade to drop it. And if Anna loses twice in a row, what does that do for Anna? So I don't know that there's a winner, like aside from an actual 1, 2, 3 count them winner and new champion or retaining champion. I don't know that there's an actual winner in this match. I don't think anybody comes out on top. But at the same time, I think Jade, because she has beaten everybody on the roster, basically, her losing is not going to damage her. And her getting the title back could be, or trying to chase the title for a little bit could be more interesting. Do I think Anna has it in her to pull this off, or does there need to be a third match? Does there need to be a rubber match, or somebody going to? So I think this goes one of two ways. Either Anna Jay wins this time, and then we've got Jade chasing the title after this, or Anna loses, Jade brags about, there's nobody left, and we get a debut. I don't know who that might be, but we get a debut, and that person comes and challenges her, and it's going to be somebody huge or somebody coming from a different brand, maybe New Japan or Impact. I couldn't think of the name of the company, or Ring of Honor or something like that. So we'll see what happens, but I think it's one of those two outcomes. So if Jade wins, she gets a new challenger. If Jade loses, then she's chasing the title. I know it's kind of a non-answer, but I don't know. I'm undecided on that one. So let's see. Let's talk about the Hardys, the dream match, the Hardys versus the Young Bucks. This is one of their bigger matches. This match has happened before, and I don't recall whether it was like at house shows. They showed clips of it from on Being the Elite, older episodes years ago. I don't remember if it was on like house shows or if it was on Ring of Honor, or maybe it was a Ring of Honor house show. But they have fought before, and probably multiple times. But on this grand of a stage, on this big scale, never. So for a lot of fans, that's going to be the first time that they've seen these two fight. And when I'll be honest, when I very first saw the Young Bucks, this was way before AEW. I'm talking when they had that short stint on TNA/Impact. When I first saw them there, I thought the same thing that they've kind of played into currently in this storyline, was that they are basically Hardys wannabes or cosplayers, whatever you want to call it. And that's all I saw them as. It wasn't until the buzz started for AEW that I started watching Being the Elite and started learning my history on the Bullet Club and all that stuff that I learned who the Young Bucks were. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. They're actually kind of cool, and I like them a lot. So now that I know what I know about the Young Bucks, and I've been watching them in AEW for the past 3 years, and knowing the Hardys and seeing all kinds of matches and all kinds of history with the Hardys, I'm really invested in this match. Who do I think is going to win this match? Oh, that's tough, because the Hardys, like they said, they're on their way out, but the Young Bucks, man, they have not been on the greatest of streaks. They need a win, and they're part of this undisputed elite and everything. You could play it that they're the weak links in the group if they lose this match. There's a lot riding on this for both teams, And, Jeff left, WWE and came here and wanted a fresh start and all that stuff. So which team are you pushing towards the tag titles? Because that's the inevitable next step for either one of these. They have to go in that direction, right? So do we want one more last run with the Hardys, or are the Young Bucks going to be chasing the titles again? I think the Hardys win. I think the Hardys win, and then they have a rematch down the line for the titles. The Young Bucks take it off of them. It's a long-term storytelling, long-term booking, but I think that's what happens. I think the Hardys right now, they're the fan favorites. They're back together. First time we're seeing them wrestle as a team in AEW. First time we've seen them together in a while. So yeah, I think the Hardys take this one. So there you go. All right, moving on to let's talk about those Owen Hart Foundation final matches to crown the winners of these tournaments. I kind of touched on them earlier. Britt Baker, Ruby Soho, Adam Cole, Samoa Joe. I think it would be really cool from a storytelling standpoint to have both Cole and Baker win these titles, because like I said, it writes itself. You play into this in future episodes of Dynamite and Rampage and so on. They are these tournament holders. They are the winning. They're the greatest in the company, and plus, Adam Cole lost twice going for the world title, so you got to do something with him, right? He's a hot commodity. Britt Baker is no longer the women's champion, so she needs something too, right? Or do they? They're so big that they don't really need a title to be over. So, but Ruby Soho does. I think at this point, Ruby Soho came in hot and then went on a massive losing streak, basically. And now this is kind of her redemption, and it's the rematch between her and Baker. So honestly, I think Ruby Soho takes this, and it makes more sense for me. And from a wrestling purist standpoint, I think Baker is the logical choice in between these two. But and also with like Owen Hart's gimmick in the WWE, maybe not there at the end, but his hottest gimmick when he was kind of the bitter, angry, enough is enough and it's time for a change kind of role. It almost feels like Baker and Cole would be perfect for this, right? But man, I think Ruby Soho needs this more than Baker does, so I think Ruby Soho takes this. As far as Samoa Joe, though, Samoa Joe is the Ring of Honor Television Champion. He is as over can be when he's not in WWE. And I argue that he's over in WWE, and WWE just couldn't see it. But I don't know. This one's a little harder. I think Adam Cole takes this one somehow, some way, by hook or crook, interference by Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt, or the Undisputed Elite. I think Adam Cole takes this. I would love for Cole and Baker to get it, but I think it's going to be Soho and Cole. That's my picks for this one. So let's talk about staying with the Undisputed Elite, Kyle O'Reilly and Darby Allin. This is a match that I didn't even think about, and now that I know that it's coming, I can't wait. Their styles are so contrasting, but at the same time, they can both do what the other one does. You know what I'm saying? So, like, Kyle is more of a technical wrestler. Submission game, pick it apart. Pick a body part, pick it apart. Darby Allin is throw everything at the wall. I'm just going to come at you, 100 miles an hour and just throw everything I've got at you. But we've seen that Darby Allin can pull out submissions left and right. He can play that mat game. And at the same time, Kyle, when he needs to, when he wants to, he can take it to the air. He can go crazy. So this is a really interesting matchup. And I think this has the potential to steal the show. And so it's going to be a really fun match to watch. I think Darby Allin loses, though. Darby has a history of Darby again is one of these guys that is so freaking over that he can lose 10 matches straight and he's still going to get cheered out the building. I mean, it's going to be deafening, the cheers that this man gets. That's just how over he is. So he doesn't need to win. I would like for him to win. I always like for Darby Allin to win, but I think to keep this going, if that's your goal in this, Kyle has to win. And then Sting comes back eventually and they get the revenge. Maybe it's a tag match against Fish and O'Reilly or whatever. But I think Kyle pulls this one off somehow, some way tonight. So we'll see. All right. I say we'll see a lot, but all right. Let's talk about the Big Jericho Appreciation Society versus the Blackpool Combat Club, which is Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley, teaming up with Santana and Ortiz and Eddie Kingston. Of course, the Jericho Appreciation Society, Chris Jericho, Matt Menard, Angelo Parker, Daniel Garcia, and Jake Hager, the sports entertainers. And I don't know what this match is going to be. Anarchy in the Arena. They were about to say Stadium Stampede, and they were like, no, we're going to do this in front of the people, which I love. So basically, it's going to be Stadium Stampede, but not pre-taped, not at another location. It's going to be right there in the arena. So it's basically just a hardcore match, the no DQ, whatever, everything goes. I don't know if they're going to throw in some kind of crazy stipulation, but you're going to see all 10 of these guys fighting all over the arena, up in the crowds, up in the stands and everything. It's going to be crazy, but I think Kingston's team wins hands down. There's no question about it. I think Regal gets involved, another shot on Jericho. But yeah, I think it's going to be a brawl. There's not really much more to say about it. And Kingston's team wins. There you go. All right. MJF versus Wardlow. Oh, man. This match has been building up for years, right? So back to the very debut of MJF with Wardlow, his bodyguard, and how he treats him. And it's the whole shtick. We've seen this a million times before. Diesel and Shawn Michaels probably the best example given the size differential here. And, Wardlow, again, has gotten himself way over. And as the Pinnacle fractured and fell apart, which I'm sad to see go because I actually really like the Pinnacle. But, Wardlow has just kind of risen. And this whole thing where they took away his music and they're chanting his name as he comes out now, and he's defeated everybody thrown in his path. He's got this powerbomb symphony. He's beaten big guys, beaten Lance Archer and W. Morrissey and all these other big guys to get to this point, taking the lashes, beat Sean Spears in the Sean Spears in the and for a second I thought I called him Ty Dillinger. Sorry about that. But beat him in the cage, and now he's got MJF, and it's finally here. Finally, redemption for Wardlow. The revenge on all the bad treatment that MJF has dished out, doled out to him. And man, if Wardlow loses, I just can't see any way that Wardlow can lose this match. Wardlow comes out on top of this by hook or crook. Some way, somehow, he fights through the odds, and Wardlow is free and gets his contract, wiped away from MJF, gets to wrestle on AEW as himself, and we get to see big things from Wardlow going forward. I think it's the culmination of a very long storyline, which I love the way that they built this one up, and it should be a good match because MJF, whether you love him or absolutely freaking hate him, he's a good wrestler. And he's really good at what he does. And I actually love him. I think he's the perfect heel. And, it's going to be a fun match to watch. It's going to be fun to see if Wardlow can pull up those Powerbomb symphonies on him as well. Then we've got Thunder Rosa defending the women's title against Serena Deeb. And funny story, I had no idea that this was the Serena from the Straight Edge Society. I don't know why, but until she did that promo on, I think it was Dynamite, where she talked about, putting things in her body to please some old perverts and all that stuff. And I was like, wait a minute, Serena. Is she Serena? And shaving her head. That's what got me when she said shaving her head. And I was like, is that Serena from CM Punk Straight Edge Society? And then I went and looked it up, and sure enough, you all probably knew this already. And for some reason, it did not click for me that that's who Serena Deeb was. And I had not seen her since the Straight Edge Society. I had not seen her anywhere else until she came to AEW. So I had no frame of reference, and she looks completely different in my defense. But yeah, I had no idea that was that Serena. So now I'm like, wow, I'm seeing her in a whole different light, and it's crazy. But these two women are very good wrestlers and very different wrestlers. Again, it's kind of like Kyle O'Reilly and Darby Allin, where Serena Deeb is a technical wrestler. She'll put you on the mat. She'll stretch you out. She'll make you tap. Whereas Thunder Rosa is more, take it to the extreme. I'll do whatever it takes to win this match, no matter what. Kind of a, catch-all wrestler. And it's going to be a very similar dynamic between these two as it is with Kyle O'Reilly and Darby Allin. But ultimately, I think Thunder Rosa is on a hot streak right now, and she pulls this one off. I could be wrong on this one. This one really could go either way. But I think Thunder Rosa, it's just her time right now. And so she takes the W. All right, so let's see. We got the tag titles left. Jurassic Express defending against Team Taz, which is Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs. And my boy Keith Lee, where he is limitless. And I'm sorry, and Swerve Strickland, whose house? So these are great teams. All three of these teams are fantastic, and all three of these teams are so evenly matched. You have the smaller, high-flying guys with Ricky Starks and Swerve Strickland and Jungle Boy, and then you have the three big powerhouses with Powerhouse Hobbs, no pun intended, Keith Lee and Luchasaurus. So, I've never seen three teams that mirror each other so well. So this is going to be a really interesting triple threat. And again, this one could go either way. Any one of these three teams could win. I don't know that it's time to take the titles off Jurassic Express. They've been on such a roll, and with Jungle Boy not in that singles title picture right now, in any singles title picture, if you take these titles off, I think you have to immediately put him in the TNT title hunt. I don't know what else you do with them. You could still just have them wrestling great tag team matches, but if you're wanting to keep him going higher and higher and keep him as one of those pillars that's being pushed, if you take the titles off of him, I think you have to do something else with him. Because unlike some of the other pillars, like MJF doesn't need a title. He's just so good, so strong on the mic that you're invested, you're engaged. Darby Allin is kind of the same way. He's not so much on the mic, but in the ring and just his persona, his image. He's one of those guys. He's just on top, right? Who's the fourth pillar? I know Jungle Boy was one. Jungle Boy, MJF, Ricky Starks, and Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara, again, he's got himself over in the right ways and in the wrong ways, so much so that he's kind of above that too. He doesn't really need a title. He can be chasing a title, but he doesn't need that to stand out. But Jungle Boy, on the other hand, he's really good in the ring. He's popular. He's got a great look. He's not so great on the mic, which is why they put Christian with the team. Yet. He's working on it, but he's not quite there yet. So I think right now, at this point in his career, he needs a title. He needs something. So if you take the tag titles away from him, he's got to go after something. He's got to either have a big marquee feud, which I could see. All right, so I'm going to predict something. I'll talk about who's going to win in a minute, but I'm going to predict that Jurassic Express loses. And because of the brittle relationship between Jurassic Express and Christian, because Christian's been growingly frustrating, his frustration has been growing in Jungle Boy because Jungle Boy keeps losing matches. And Jungle Boy's like really apologetic, and Christian just kind of, he gets upset for a second and then he lets it brush off. And I think it's kind of been the subtle storytelling that they've been doing behind the scenes, a little bit here and there, just sprinkling it in. And I think that comes to a head here. I think Jurassic Express loses and Christian loses it with Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy's the one that gets pinned and he just loses it. And so it breaks up this little faction. And then you've got Jungle Boy versus Christian. And that's what you do with those two for a little bit. It's a higher marquee match or feud for Jungle Boy. He gets to have that thing. At first, you have like Luchasaurus stand in between them and everything, and then it comes to a head, and the two just blow up and have to fight it out. So I think that's what happens. As far as who wins the tag titles, I think it's a more interesting story if Team Taz wins them and Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee chase them. So that's my prediction. I think Ricky Starks pins Jungle Boy and Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs. But then again, Ricky Starks has that FTW championship, so he doesn't really need the tag titles. Still, I think it's a more interesting story. If you want to really hype up Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, you put them on them. So, man, now I'm torn because I forgot about the FTW championship. I think, no, I'm going to stick with it. I think Starks and Hobbs win the title, and then Keith Lee and Strickland chase them and win them off of them. That's what I think happens. And then from there, who knows? But yeah, that's my prediction. So it's a very convoluted, very complicated prediction, but that's what I'm going with. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Which leaves us with the main event, finally, AEW World Championship. Hangman Adam Page defending the title against CM Punk. Now, just on paper, you see this match and you're like, okay, I'm getting this pay-per-view to watch this match. It's CM Punk fighting for the world title, right? And if you're an AEW fan, if you've been an AEW fan since day one, it's like it's Hangman, the champ, versus CM Punk, right? So this match is just huge. And we've seen some amazing title matches with Adam Page versus Adam Cole versus Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson. He's had some really great matches, and there's no reason to think that he's not going to have a great one with CM Punk. And when CM Punk's fighting for a world title, CM Punk is at his best. So we're going to see, hopefully, the best CM Punk has to offer here. My problem with this particular matchup is the storytelling leading up to this match isn't as strong as it could be, and definitely not as strong as other stories for Adam Page have been. You know, there's a long history with Kenny Omega, long history with Adam Cole. With Bryan Danielson, it was just Bryan Danielson wants to fight the best. So you have that thing. But with CM Punk, there's been a few things said back and forth, but we don't really know what Hangman Adam Page's problem with CM Punk actually is, and that's a problem. CM Punk has just played I don't know why you're taking it personally, I just want the title. And Page is like, I don't want you here. Nobody wants you here. I hate you. And it just came out of nowhere. And my theory is that CM Punk is so huge. I mean, like, huge. I mean, it's CM Punk. That there's no way that Hangman Adam Page gets cheered next to CM Punk. And I think that logic is flawed. I think it's broken because I think you could have let's go Page, CM Punk, let's go Page, CM. I think it could be that 50-50 thing. I think you really could. I think Page in AEW is over enough to get that with CM Punk. And it could have been a beautiful thing if they'd done it that way. But we didn't go that way. I think they were a little hesitant. They were a little afraid that Hangman's going to be booed because it's CM Punk, and everybody wants CM Punk to win. So Hangman Adam Page kind of has to act heelish. Even though he's not a heel, he's got to act heelish against CM Punk. But we don't know why. And that's a problem, because then there's a little bit of disconnect. It's like, why is Hangman being a jerk again? What's his problem with Punk? Okay, now we want Punk to win because, he's the good guy, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how the crowd reacts to Punk versus Page, and who's getting booed, who's getting cheered. And I really don't know who wins this match. This is a hard one, because if you've watched AEW from the beginning, you can't help but be an Adam Page fan. And his story, being the first guy to challenge, one of the first two guys to challenge for the first ever AEW World Championship, and losing, and kind of doubting himself, and then becoming a tag team wrestler. Then that goes south, and then he has this whole identity crisis, and then he has his redemption story, and he beats Kenny Omega, and he becomes the world champion. Now he's defended it against big names, and he's solidified himself as one of the top, actually the top guy in the company, but definitely one of the bigger guys in the entire company, right? And in the entire industry right now. And then you got CM Punk, who left wrestling for 7 years, came back, has wrestled some cool people, has wrestled MJF and Darby Allin and people like that, but he hasn't had that one match that just, he hasn't had that big feud yet. He's just kind of wrestled guys that he's wanted to wrestle. I mean, the MJF thing was something, but I don't know. This is the biggest match CM Punk's wrestled since he's returned. And for him to lose after all of that, I think Adam Page gets booed out of the building at this point. Before he started acting like a jerk and just, whatever's going on between the two, maybe not. Maybe it's 50-50 and maybe they're happy either way. But at this point, I think he gets booed out of the building. So unless they're going for a full heel turn, CM Punk has to win. And I don't know that it's the right time to pull the title off Hangman Adam Page, because then what do you do with Page? Does he chase the title? Does he get it back? Do they have a big rematch? Or does somebody step up after that and face CM Punk? And Hangman Adam Page is back down a few notches. What happens with Hangman Adam Page then? So I'm really torn on this. I cannot see CM Punk not winning, but at the same time, I don't want to see Hangman lose the title yet. It's too soon, I think. So I'm really torn. What do I think is going to happen? Oh, man. I think CM Punk. That's a hard one. Man, I have no prediction for this one. But I said I was going to make my prediction, so I'm going to make a prediction. So, man, this is hard. Because you don't, unlike WWE, you don't have a pay-per-view every month. So if CM Punk loses and you're going to build to a rematch, it's not for like 2 or 3 months, right? 3 months probably before he would get that rematch, unless it's on Dynamite. And then it doesn't mean as much, at least in my mind. And that's another issue. You got to build the pay-per-view so they're important and they mean something. I'm beating around the bush, and I actually skipped a match, so I'll have to circle back around. I'm going to wait on this prediction while I think about this in the back of my head and talk about the one match that I did miss, which was the House of Black versus Death Triangle. And I think Death Triangle takes this one. I mean, it's kind of House of Black has been terrorizing them, and with Ray Phoenix out for a while, they had the numbers game, and they got the best of them. We haven't seen this feud hasn't elevated to the point that it really needs to, in my mind. But at the same time, this has been building since the very first day that the House of Black formed, right? So for Death Triangle to go through all that, to get beat down, all this stuff, and not have that victory doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless they're carrying this out for much longer, which is possible. So I think that Julia Hart is going to join House of Black. So I'm going to change my prediction, actually. I think Julia Hart interferes and costs Death Triangle the match some way, somehow. And if you don't pull that trigger yet, this has been building up for months and months, too. I think it's way past time to pull that trigger with Julia Hart. And this would be the perfect opportunity for it to happen, for her to come up and just, like, ruin the match and cost them the match, and then you have a rematch down the line. So yeah, I think House of Black wins. But going back to CM Punk and Hangman Adam Page, because I've left that hanging out there long enough. I think CM Punk wins. CM Punk is your new AEW champion, and Hangman Adam Page has to fight his way back to that title. I don't necessarily like that outcome. I don't think CM Punk needs a title either. But if you don't eventually put that title on CM Punk, and the same goes for Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole, then why are they there, right? And, just from storytelling perspective and for fan service, which AEW is big on, I think that has to happen eventually. Does it happen yet? I mean, CM Punk's getting older. I know he's back. I know he's passionate about it again, but we don't see him wrestle a lot. And when we do, let's be honest, there is some ring rust. He gets winded a lot easier than he used to. I'm hoping that his conditioning is better and he puts on top-notch match here tonight. We'll see. But, I think if you're going to do it, if you're going to do a title run for CM Punk, you got to do it now. So CM Punk wins. And those are my predictions for AEW Double or Nothing. I may be full of hot air. I may not know anything at all. But we'll see how many I got right, how many I got wrong. I think it's going to be 50-50 on that, and we'll see what happens. But I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you think is going to happen on Double or Nothing. And if you're listening to this post Double or Nothing, let me know how wrong I was. and if you got any of your predictions right. So it should be an interesting conversation. No matter what happens from this 4-hour, 5-hour pay-per-view, whatever it ends up being, it's going to lead to some really interesting things come Dynamite. So can't wait for that either. But that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Oddcast. So thank you for watching or listening wherever you're viewing or listening to this from. I appreciate it. Again, you can check out the YouTube channel at awpodcast.com. That's awepodcast.com. You can find it, the Oddcast, on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts from. And you can follow me on social media at the Oddcast. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And you can subscribe to the newsletter. Link is in the description below if you want some more updates. Very infrequent emails. I'm not going to bombard you. I can't even tell you the last one I sent. So they're very infrequent. But when I do have something to talk about, it will be in that newsletter. And it'll be cool to have you on that list. And you'll get a free AEW fan-made comic book by creator Todd Black just for signing up. So go check that out at the link below. And so thanks for listening. And until next time, watch wrestling. Stay awesome.